So, we had ourselves a meeting of the mind, a battle royale, Skylar Fiction, Dr. Josh versus Craig Reed, and the Dry Apologist. And, honestly, I was really surprised it went down the way it did. I thought it was going to be fun. I thought it was going to be a conversation. For whatever reason, Skylar started out like really way more aggressive than the situation warranted than I thought he would be. He started out trying to beat us, trying to win. For whatever reason, I don't know. Now, here's two things that you should know right from the jump. Skylar adopts when I am in a conversation with an atheist, I will adopt a rhetorical position that I don't necessarily agree with. So will Skylar. Skylar has said this. He will within the context of a debate, he will adopt a rhetorical position that he doesn't necessarily agree with. Why does Skylar do it? He says so he can get inside of a Christian's worldview and show him how it's inconsistent. In other words, to shut the person down and win a debate. I do the exact same thing, but I do it for the exact opposite reason. I adopt a rhetorical position that I don't fully agree with. Why? For the purposes of opening up a conversation so that I can find common ground with the person who I am debating. Ultimately, I don't care at all who wins debates. If Skylar cares who wins debates, I don't think that's worthy of me. I really don't. I don't care who wins a debate. What I ultimately care about is what is true. Now, for the purposes of what we engaged in, Skylar started adopting tactics that were way too aggressive, way too quickly. And I do not think they were organic to the moment. He was trying to shut me and Dry Apologist down. Talk over us, interrupt us, tell us, dismiss our intelligence, dismiss the points we're making really quickly, belittle us. And I think he was using those tactics semi-consciously. Why? Because the weakness of the argument that he was presenting. Honestly, I think it was a total line of crap. I didn't buy it for a second. I thought it was shtick. And I think if he examined it, he would know it's shtick. If you want to win a debate, I can win debates. I don't really consider that's what I'm there to do. Honestly, most of you atheists, there are a lot of atheists. A lot of you think you're 100 times smarter than you actually are. Take my word for it. You're nowhere near as smart as you think you are. And a lot of you put a lot of stock in, I shut this guy down. I'm not that impressed with it. I'm impressed if you're making real points that can be solidly backed up and they will carry the day moving forward. Skylar seems to be impressed with who wins a debate at any given time. I am not. I consider that beneath myself to a certain degree. I don't care. So like when Skylar debated Stephanie. Yeah, Skylar kind of won that debate, but maybe like 54 to 48 or something, not by very much. It's like if Skylar played chess with Stephanie. Who wins? Who cares? I wouldn't even bother to find out. Skylar and Stephanie played chess yesterday, Craig. Who wins? You tell me, I wouldn't even remember past 2 hours. Why? I don't care. Skylar and Stephanie played tennis yesterday. Who wins? I don't care. I care about the actual structure of the argument that's being presented moving forward. I care about what's true. I don't ultimately care who wins or who loses the debate. I really don't. And Skylar adopts rhetorical positions that he doesn't fully believe in for the purposes of winning debates. I adopt rhetorical positions that I don't fully believe in for the exact opposite purpose, to attempt to find common ground with people who don't agree with me, so I can have an open conversation and learn something and get somewhere real and true. I care about what's true. If I were only in the business of winning debates, I'd win a lot of debates. And he debates a lot of people who he shouldn't be debating. Why? Because they aren't smart enough. They're not worth his time. You're not achieving anything. Then that's why he presents a structural syllogism that is logically weak and doesn't notice it. That's ultimately why I think he was relying on aggressive tactics really too quickly. That's why I don't trust the aggressive tactics. They weren't organic to the moment. I didn't think he was legitimately getting frustrated with me or Dry Apologist, like we're just not smart enough to understand. He was very dismissive of our intelligence. And he was very dismissive of the things we were saying in response to him. I don't buy either of them. I found them to be fallacious and not organic to the moment. And his aggression didn't match what was going on. So he lost his patience too quickly. And it felt like I was being played. It felt like he was trying to cover up the logical weakness of the structure of the argument he was trying to present through tactics that are street tactics. That's what I think was going down. That's why I think he did it, honestly, because his argument's weak. And I think if he let us just talk about it, I think he understands that we'd find the weakness in the argument pretty quickly, and we could have dismantled it pretty easily, and we could have moved on to other things. It would have been a nice conversation. Or we didn't even have to talk about his logical syllogism. His syllogism is weak. You want me to explain it all for you right now so you know that I'm telling you the truth? Sure. First of all, a syllogism is a very difficult thing to get right. Your syllogism is only as good as the weakest premise. A syllogism is attempting to prove something logically, which means it is shouldering the burden of proof, and you are assigning yourself the burden of proof to the umpteenth degree. And your syllogism is only as good as its weakest premise. If someone can find a reasonable objection to the weakest premise of your syllogism, and it fails, try again. It's that simple. It doesn't matter what Skylar believes or doesn't believe about syllogism. It's that simple. If you were presenting a syllogism, he's got 8 premises there that he was presenting. If I can find a reasonable objection to any single premise of those 8, the syllogism fails, try again. That's how it works. And it doesn't matter if he shuts me down and tries to talk over me and tell me I don't understand this, doesn't matter. It's all irrelevant, it's all smoke. All of that crap was basically smoke, and I found it all crap, and I felt like I was being played, and it got really obnoxious and annoying. And, almost to the point where it became unbearable. Almost to the point where it became unbearable, because it wasn't real. The logic of the thing he was presenting was structurally weak. My objection was pretty much valid. Again, he misunderstands what an objection. I don't have to prove my objection is true, and it's the reason, it's the absolute truth in conclusion. All I have to do is raise a reasonable objection to his syllogism, and the syllogism fails. Remember the classic syllogistic example. Socrates is a man. All men are mortal. Socrates is mortal, therefore all men are mortal. The premise, Socrates is a man. There is no such thing as a reasonable objection to that premise, ever. There is no such thing. So you can't reasonably object to that premise. Every single one of his premises could be reasonably objected to, I'm pretty sure. I don't know that for a fact, but it's not up to me. Skylar, you should take that syllogism back to the shop and rework it, because it wasn't strong enough to even be worthy of consideration. Honestly, it really wasn't. And I think you kind of recognize that. That's why you spent the first half hour trying to talk over us, belittle us, interrupt us, make us think that we're dumb. I'm not dumb. Maybe you honestly think me and Dry Apologist are dumb. I promise you we're not. And you were really dismissive of the thing that I was trying to present. Okay, dismissive to the point that you obviously haven't thought about it at all, because I've been working on that for some time. And anybody listening to me, if you think you can readily dismiss the things that I'm presenting, think again. I've been thinking about these things for a long time, and I have chiseled them away so that they seem simple, and they seem simple on purpose for a reason. Because I have chiseled away my religious experiences. My voice broke. I have chiseled away my religious experiences to the knowable facts about the experience. Period. I did that on purpose for a reason. If it seems simple, it's simple by design. If it seems simplistic, it isn't. Think clearer. It really isn't. If you think you can dismiss it out of hand, you can't. You can't. Skylar seems to think he can dismiss what I was saying out of hand. He can't. You don't believe me? Go watch my interview with Peter. Peter's an atheist. Peter gave me a fair hearing and was cool and respectful in that interview. For the first hour, he was asking me about my religious experiences. And because I have chiseled them down to the knowable facts, I could very quickly cover the ground on which the atheist will object, so that there's no confusion and we aren't arguing over things we don't need to be arguing about. I have chiseled it away, not so that you can dismiss it out of hand, which is what Skylar tried to do, so that you, an atheist or a secular person, can readily agree that these are the knowable facts about a religious experience, so that we can get to something real. If Skylar doesn't want to get to something real, that's his prerogative. Then I'll debate him 1 or 2 more times. If he starts acting like that again, I'll never debate him again and won't even look back, won't think about it ever again. Why? Because it's not worthy of consideration. Skylar could be a great debater. He could be. He has some of the tools of a really good debater. And sometimes he's really good. He's great at a couple things. He's great at intellectual maneuvering. He's really deft at intellectual maneuvering really quickly. That's why he likes debating, because he's good at that, really good at it. If he ever wants to be great, he's going to have to examine the structure of what he is actually presenting and not be so, not be so charitable with what he's presenting and so uncharitable with what's being presented to him. The structure of what he is presenting has to be logically sound. And if anybody can object reasonably to any one of the 8 premises of his syllogism, the syllogism doesn't work. He does not seem to fully grasp that. I promise you that's true. The syllogism will never work. That's true, period. Of a syllogism. Syllogism is attempting a really hard thing to do, prove something. I don't have to prove my reasonable objection is true. It just has to be a reasonable objection, period. So my objection that, maybe God has Satan tempting people is perfectly reasonable. I don't have to prove that it's the reason, it's the right objection. I could think of 5 more reasonable objections to almost every single premise he presented. And the logical predicate of the syllogism was also flawed. The logical structure of the thing of the idea behind it was incoherent. And a lot of atheists make this mistake. There is a really big difference between ontology and what people believe. Ontology is never predicated on what people actually believe. You cannot prove an ontology. You cannot prove something out of existence by virtue of what somebody believes or does not believe. Ever. That doesn't make any sense. That's why he got so triggered when he said, you have to believe this, Craig. I don't have to believe anything. And if your syllogism is, if you're proving something predicated on what I have to believe, that makes 0 sense. 0 sense. You can't prove God out of existence by virtue of what someone believes or does not believe. That never makes sense. Think about a flat earther, okay? Think clearly about this. I promise you I'm telling you the truth. You're not hearing this clearly if you don't think that's right. Think about a flat earther, okay? They think the earth is flat. Does what they believe about the earth have any bearing on what shape the earth actually is? No. 0 bearing. Skylar was basically trying to argue that a Christian's belief about God somehow has some immediate provability on the veracity on God's ontology. It doesn't. The Christian can be wrong. He can prove a Christian wrong, and he can say, I proved that you, Craig, are wrong about this aspect of what you believe. Fine. That can be true. But that doesn't extend to everything I believe at all. It's a mistake he's making. He makes a lot. A lot of atheists make this mistake. I'm not sure if I explained that clearly enough that will be settled, but it should be. What you believe is not the same thing as the ontology. You cannot prove something out of existence by virtue of what somebody believes or does not believe about it. Ever. A lot of atheists make this mistake. That's why they get spend so much time debating about beliefs. Beliefs ideally have a relationship to what actually is. Okay, this is a fundamental mistake of street epistemology. They think they're proving something that they aren't. All you are doing is exposing the weaknesses of any individual's belief system. You are never actually doing anything to the ontology of what actually is ever. That was a logical weakness of the presentation he was making. It's forever flawed. It is flawed by concept. And again, you don't have to understand that clearly, because the other part of what I said about his syllogism is also true. If he had not been using the aggressive tactics, we would have dismantled his syllogism pretty quickly, pretty deftly, pretty easily. We could have moved on to other things. So that's what I think the aggressive tactics were about, covering smoke to cover his tracks. Because I think he recognized that what he was presenting was weak. It is weak. And I don't care if he recognized it from this hearing, because I promise you I'm telling the truth. It's weak. And you can't prove something by syllogisms that don't work. And you can't really, browbeat people into submission if your argument is structurally flawed. Ultimately, if you want to become great at debater, and he could potentially become great at debating, you have to examine the structure of what you are presenting. It has to be structurally sound. It's a lot easier to win a debate. Scholars sometimes win debates with arguments that are structurally flawed. He does it a lot. Why? Because he's good at rhetoric, he's good at maneuvering, he's good at intellectually maneuvering, really good at it. Borderline excellent, maybe great at it. But if he ever wants to become great at debating as a whole, he's going to have to give up who wins any one debate, because that's irrelevant, and start thinking about the structure of what he's actually presenting. The structure of what he is actually presenting. Because the argument you are presenting in the debate is also only as good. It isn't as good. He thinks it's as good as the opponent. That's because he has a short-term view of what a debate is. I beat the opponent. Great. It's only as good as the smartest possible objection to it. If there's a smart objection, you've got to steel man your debate. What's the best objection to this? The best case scenario, the strongest possible objection I can think of. Your argument is only as good as that. Forever and always. Doesn't matter how much you don't want that to be the case, that's the case. So he debates a lot of middle-brow opponents and declares Pyrrhic victories because he beats them in a debate. It's irrelevant. Why? Because they're not actually getting at the structure of what you're presenting. So you're never going to be great. You got to take your debate to the smartest person in town and let him demolish it. That's my point. Got to lose short term. Take your weak argument to the smartest person in town, let him tear it to shreds, then build it back up again. Because then the argument itself will be strong. You're doing the exact opposite. You're taking weak arguments to people and then you outmaneuver them and browbeat them into submission. Declare yourself the victor, which you did win, but it's irrelevant. Why? Because it's a Pyrrhic victory. And you will never become a great debater if you keep doing that. Why? Because you are never letting people expose the logical flaw in the debate itself. Let them tear your argument to shreds. It is in your best interest to do so. You don't seem to recognize that. I promise you that's true. It is in your best interest. If you want to be making the strongest possible arguments, it's true for everybody listening to me. If you want to be making the strongest possible arguments, it is in your best interest always to take it to the smartest person in town and let him tear it to shreds. Why? Because then you see where the flaw is. If you take it to the middle person in town, you win the argument, and you win the quote-unquote win the debate, the argument can be weak and survive for another day, but you aren't getting any better. You are getting better at maneuvering, which is irrelevant. If you want to be great, you got to be good at maneuvering what she's doing, and then you got to be presenting something that is logically solid, which he never does. Why? Because he tries to cover it up. As soon as you start exposing the weaknesses in the thing he's presenting, he starts using disruption tactics, strategies of obfuscation. Talk louder than to start dismissing your intelligence, telling you Christians never understand this. Maybe he thinks Christians are idiots. It's possible. I honestly felt like he does think I'm an idiot, which I find surprising, but, could be. I honestly think he does think that dry apologists and I are idiots to a certain degree. A lot of atheists make this mistake too. You're always going to be weak if you always underestimate people. He dismissed what my argument pretty much out of hand. Thinks, that can be dismissed easily. Can't be. If you think it can, you can't. You're not really thinking clearly. And dry apologists are not an idiot. A lot of people are going to make that mistake. Why talk slow? Yeah, you could say that this is, and he talks slow, and people are like, who's this stoner Christian? Because that's how, people will go, oh, he's dumb. He's not dumb at all. Promise. You want me to prove it to you? The smartest person in the atheist community, bar none, is Alex Malpass. When Matt Dillahunty wants to check his work, Matt Dillahunty's in a debate, not sure if he was presenting something that's philosophically right, he goes to Alex Malpass to check his work. Okay? Dry Apologist debated Alex Malpass and held his ground pretty easily. It wasn't embarrassing for him. That's the sharpest person in the atheist community, bar none. And go watch the debate. Dry Apologist holds his own. Not saying he won. I'm saying he didn't embarrass himself, which is darn good enough. That means he's first-rate intellect. But it really does. You don't believe me? Fine. And because Skylar probably also makes the mistake of thinking somebody is right means they're smart. He doesn't think that Dry Apologist is right. Okay, that has nothing to do with someone's intelligence. That's a big cognitive error that almost all atheists makes. I don't agree with what he's saying, therefore he's dumb. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't. I don't agree with what Dry Apologist is saying, therefore he's dumb. He talks really slow, therefore he's dumb. It doesn't work like that. Talks really slowly. Yeah, that's actually a decent imitation. Sorry, Dry Apologist, that's pretty darn good. Yeah, you could say that that's logically necessary, but not metaphysical. That's actually, wow, that's good. I think I'm nailing it. I really honestly do. He's got a bass player personality. Hopefully him and I will be in more debates. Why? Because I think we could actually complement each other really good. He's the exact opposite personality. I'm a loud New Yorker. I'm a loud, talkative Italian New Yorker. He's bass player. Yeah, can you plug in my bass, man? Bass player personality. Both him and Dr. Josh have it. It's the mellow guy, but, content to put in the cool bass line, gets all the girls, Yeah, this would sound really cool right here. Look at Paul Simonone, Exhibit A, bass player for The Clash. Got all the ladies, mellow, kind of hangs out in the back, you know, cigarette dangles out, talks really slow. He never takes center stage, not comfortable there, not loud like the aggressive New Yorker. It's a different type of personality than me. So hopefully him and I will have debates in the future and you guys can analyze. Let's see if I have more time to go over this further. Yeah, okay, I got 1 or 2 more minutes. Now, let's get to Dr. Josh. What saved that becoming a total dumpster fire was Dr. Josh, actually. Again, I've said this before, I will say this again. A lot of you are skeptical about Dr. Josh's character. I am not one of them. Honestly think Dr. Josh is a really nice guy, and I have faith in his integrity. His integrity and his decency, his sense of integrity and sense of decency ultimately would save that from being a dumpster fire. Why? Because I started appealing to it. If Skylar had run the day, it would have turned into a fight. It was heading that way. You know, because he doesn't want to cover, he didn't want to admit that his syllogism is weak. Your syllogism is weak. Period. Deal with it. Deal with it. Deal with it and move on. You want to become great at debater, you're going to have to take your debate to the smartest person in town, let him tear it to shreds. And yeah, short term, you'll lose the debate. And people go, oh, Skylar really got killed there. But you'll grow. That's the key. Dr. Josh, what saved the day is that Dr. Josh has an ingrained sense of decency and integrity. Decency, I'm never going to see Dr. Josh insult somebody for no reason. He didn't dismiss our intelligence. He didn't start belittling us. And I don't think I ever will see him doing that. If Dr. Josh has insulted you, you deserved it. You were being a douche, probably. You were doing something really obnoxious. I don't think he will ever insult somebody for no reason. He has an ingrained sense of decency and an ingrained sense of integrity. I don't think he is ever going to just dismiss an argument out of hand without giving it consideration, without actually examining it. I don't foresee him ever doing that either. So that's ultimately what saved the day. I started appealing to Dr. Josh and his ingrained sense of decency and integrity, and he showed up to the table just as I would expect him to. I have faith in the guy's character. I really do. You know, a lot of Christians don't. I apparently got in some dust-up. I didn't see what happened, but his wife was mouthing off on Twitter about, you know, some Christians doing X on Sunday. I couldn't figure out what she was talking about. Sometimes it's hard on Twitter. You see something and it's hard to locate what they're talking about. Couldn't figure out what she meant. But apparently some critics were bashing Dr. Josh somewhere. I think I stand by Dr. Josh, honestly. I really do. And if you have any questions about his characters and integrity, watch him in the debate. Ultimately, what saved the day is we started appealing to Dr. Josh. Okay, come in here and be the voice of reason. And he was. It's just as I would expect him to be. He was. Come in here and start making this conversation reasonable. Now, ultimately, I was disappointed. I thought this was going to be fun. I thought it was going to be a conversation. I really did. I didn't think it was going to be this like let's have a fight for no particularly good reason. It was stupid. It was really stupid. First half hour of the debate was pointless. And I was really disappointed. The last half hour got kind of fun because Dr. Josh came in and saved the day. That's how I see it. And Skylar eventually calmed down. Skylar can be cool when he's not acting like that. When he gets triggered, he's not cool. He's not cool at all. And this time he triggered himself. Nobody triggered him. He triggered him. He showed up triggered. Honestly, I think what ultimately triggered him was when he said to me, you have to believe this. And I said, dude, I don't have to believe anything. Because I think that's where he ultimately understood that his syllogism wasn't going to work. Because it's really obvious right there. That's what his syllogism is predicated on. You have to believe this. So, and he'll be the first person to probably talk about no true Scotsman. You have to believe this or you're not really a Christian. You might as well finish it off. You might as well finish and say, you have to believe this, Craig. Why, Skylar? Because you're not really a Christian if you don't. Okay, no true Scotsman fallacy. Every atheist in town will tell you that. Every atheist in town will go, well, that's a no true Scotsman fallacy. So he was trying to perpetrate that upon us. And ultimately what saved the day is that Josh is a good guy. I swear to God he is. I don't understand why that's a challenge for some Christians, but it's really obvious. It was really obvious in this debate, you know. Josh shows up, he's calm, he's decent, he's nice. Never going to be too much of never going to be too much of a melodrama between Josh and any person. If there is one, I'm going to tend to blame the other person. Why? Because he's reasonable. Easy to get along with if you want to. I find him so. You know, maybe it's just me, but whatever. So, 24 minutes, you know, I guess I'll wrap it up. I didn't really say everything the way I wanted it to be said. You know, we'll see what happens going forward. Maybe we'll have another debate. I certainly want to debate with Dry Apologist. other people, if not these particular two, because I think that could work. He's got the exact opposite personality of me, and it could kind of work, actually. So we'll see what happens. Other than that, it got fun towards the end, semi-productive at the end. The first half hour was just a kind of a trial. So there you have it. Kind of disappointing, actually. I thought it was going to be a lot more fun, a lot more of an open-ended conversation. That's why I adopt rhetorical positions. I adopt rhetorical positions that I don't fully believe in, so I can open up a conversation and have a real conversation with people I don't agree with. I do that on purpose. I put what I believe on the shelf so I can talk to you, whoever you are, and we can find common ground. I'm doing that on purpose. I'm doing that on purpose. That's what I was trying to do when I offered, okay, Satan can be a metaphor and we can anthropomorphize it. And apparently that's not allowed. Skylar's not allowed, Greg. Okay. Oh, I see. That's not allowed in your debate. You got to play by your rules, or otherwise you lose the debate. It's like I said. I'll put out some of my criticism of the debate with Stephanie. I have longer criticism of that. And I'll explain it somewhat in depth. Skylar could be good at debating, but he leans too heavily on rhetorical devices, and he's got to examine the structure of what he's arguing if he wants to be great. The argument is what's going to win the day. The argument itself is what's important. It isn't important that you win a debate, by being aggressive, by backing people in the corners, by cutting off the center. That's not important that you win a debate that way. If you win a debate that way, not good on you. That's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. So there you have it, kids. That's how I see it. Mass is ended. Go in peace. Amen.